All right, everyone, and welcome to a short tutorial on a case I actually did this morning in the practice, and I'd like to share it with you because there are quite a few things that I learned about this case today that we could do better. So let's go ahead and switch over to our machine here, and here's what we can see. So to kind of show us what we're dealing with here, let me bring in our case here, okay? Here's a patient that came to me with an existing restoration on tooth number 10. And you can see here it fractured, and there is enough ferrule left to not warrant taking the tooth out. It gave the patient the option, certainly, and the patient chose to keep his tooth. And we did a existing root canal. We did a post and core, and then did a new crown on the restoration. But I didn't have anything to work with, so I was working from scratch in design. And then the bigger question is how do I prevent this type of failure from happening in the future? So what I want to do is go ahead and bring up my initial proposal here. And there we go. And what I want to show you on this particular situation is what I'm looking at, okay? So what I see here, if we turn the grid on, is when I look at this case, I see a design that quite honestly is probably a little bit shorter than the adjacent contralateral number 7, but blends into the arch quite nicely, as you can see right in this area here. If we were to, kind of see how that blends in. Sorry, my lines aren't so good here. But it blends in pretty nicely. It doesn't look overly long or anything along that line. And then as we look at it from the lingual, we can see that it's not overly bulky or anything like that. And we can see that we do have a little bit of a heavy spot here and here, but that's also, for the most part, matches the colors of the adjacent teeth. And so from my perspective, with some post contouring after milling, we have a restoration that's ready to go. If I really wanted to make it look a little bit better, I could come in here and add a little bit of anatomy using the incisal variation tool. Not that his natural teeth have this anatomy, but it's pretty good to go here. And honestly, this in the past, this is exactly how I would have designed this restoration, milled it, and then adjusted some centric stops right in here, and probably gone about my merry way. But I would bet money that this would come back to haunt me down the road. And this is why I'm such a big fan of using the articulation tool. So if you take a look over here, we have our articulation tool, and what that's going to allow us to do here is take a closer look at our restoration, and we'll go into the articulation tool. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn on the occlusal compass. And now when I turn on the occlusal compass, I can actually see that much of my incisal edge is actually hitting. And then so when I see things like that, but yet the restoration looks like it's in line, the first thing I do is I go ahead and check to see, hey, is my animation actually correct? And so I'll scroll down here and turn on the articulation animation. And here we can see that our animation actually looks pretty correct. I don't see teeth going through each other. Certainly this looks like a reasonable animation there. Now, if I were to go in here and say, hey, why does that look that way? You know, the first thing I would start doing, and this is what I do with patients, just to give you an idea, is I want to show them what it is that I'm seeing. So I'll turn on the grid tool here on the lower arch, and what I'll show my patient is now what I can start to see here is as I level up these lower incisors to the grid, what I can see is that this area right here, tooth number 23, is above the grid compared to tooth number 26 on the other side. And that would correspond to why, honestly, tooth number 10 needs to be shorter. So what I'll do here now is I will actually use with the articulation on, I will actually use the shape circular tool, and I will come in here, and I like to use the shape circular tool versus the shape anatomical tool, because I like how it gives me the appearance of wear facets. So I'll come in here, drop these areas down, just like so. And this is beginning to get my restoration into more ideal occlusion, and to prevent lateral forces from potentially breaking this crown. And quite honestly, the reason this probably broke in the first place is because of that. Now I'll show you another trick I use here. Now I will end up doing some analog milling on these as well. So I will get it pretty close using the tools, but then I will also utilize some post-mill contouring to get these correct. And then I'll come in with the smooth tool here, just like so, and just kind of smooth these areas out. And now what I can see here now is that I'm starting to get this more normalized. And then I'll come in here with my smooth tool like so, and just kind of level off that incisal edge and something like this. Now what I'm starting to see is a restoration that's not going to be heavy in excursive movements, but cosmetically certainly it looks a lot shorter than the contralateral lateral here. But again, utilizing the software, I'm going to explain to the patient why we're doing that, and that way the patient can have an understanding. And let's say, for example, a patient doesn't accept that. Then what I would do in this situation is simply let the patient know, hey, I can make it that long, but then I guarantee no guarantees about how long the restoration will last. So I want to thank you for taking a moment out of your time to watch this video. If there are other videos or other questions that you would like to have answered, please don't hesitate to visit www.tbonespeaks.com and submit your questions. And if there are also more information on how we can help you with some of our hands-on workshops on medical billing, sleep apnea, implant integration with CEREC and cone beam, and even our CEREC training, please don't hesitate to visit our training website at 3d-dentists.com. Thank you very much.